This meeting is being recorded and live streamed via the Council website and YouTube. Good afternoon, councillors, staff and members of the public. Please be upstanding for the Mayor, Councillor Straub.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Council's opening affirmation is that we, the councillors of Loddonshire, declare that we will carry out our duties in the best interests of our community and through collective leadership will maintain the highest standards of good governance.
The Loddonshire Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land upon which we are gathered and pays its respects to elders both past and present. Please be seated.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Welcome, councillors, and welcome to the Loddonshire directors in the room. Welcome to all those watching via the live stream. And first time in a long time, we have an open gallery, but no one here today. But as always, our gallery is open for all of our open public meetings. We've got a little bit to get through today, so we'll jump straight in. No apologies today to accept. Councillors, is there any conflicts of interest to declare on any item on the agenda today? No conflicts. Thank you very much. We'll move on to number 5, our previous minutes. 5.1 is the confirmation of minutes. I'll take those as read, ask if there's any questions, queries or comments regarding the minutes of previous. If not, I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move that they are true and correct. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor prepared to second. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. A show of hands in favour. And those minutes are carried. Thank you very much. 6.1, the record of Council's auspice meetings. Mr Fitzgerald, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. Council's governance rules require a record of the meetings conducted under the auspices of Council to be confirmed at the next scheduled Council meeting. That record of the meetings must include a record of which officers and councillors attended the meeting, what were the matters which were considered, and any conflicts of interest that were declared. Attached to this report is 2 records of meetings conducted under the auspices, and the recommendation is that Council confirm the records of the following auspiced meetings as detailed within this report. Number 1, the Council briefing held 28 October 2025, and number 2, the Council forum held 11 November 2025. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Any questions, queries or comments, councillors, regarding those auspice meetings? If not, councillor to please move. Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Angelo to second. Thank you very much. Is there a show of hands in favour? And those auspice meetings record is carried. 7.1, review of action sheets. Mr Fitzgerald again, please.
Yeah, thank you again, Mayor Straub. Councillors, long-standing practice at Loddonshire is to report on the actions and the progress of implementing those from council resolutions. Attached to this report is a document containing the status of those actions. I'm pleased to report once again that there were no outstanding actions prior to the October 2025 council meeting, and that all 7 actions arising from the October Council meeting resolutions and all 4 of the actions arising from the 11 November special Council meeting have been acted upon. Officers recommend that Council receive and note the status of Council resolution actions as attached to this report. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Again, councillors, any questions regarding the action sheet? If not, a councillor prepared to move. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor to second. Thank you again, Councillor Angelo. A show of hands in favour. And those action sheets are carried. Moving into our reports, and I'll start with my mayoral report. And a couple of things to report on this month. It has been another busy month, and it has been great to be involved with a number of community events. A couple I wanted to really touch on though was back on the 8th of November. I went to Pyramid Hill and was involved with the Pyramid Hill, or the Northern Victorian Quarter Horse Association, had a very special day celebrating the 50th year anniversary of their medallion competition. Very significant in the Quarter Horse Association calendar, and a really great turnout to all of those participants from our local Loddon area, but also from abroad, interstate. It is a great facility out there. The Quarter Horse Association facility is very significant in that landscape there of that rec reserve precinct just near the Pyramid Hill Golf Course. They go about their business quietly, but have a huge impact on the community and the support they give. Significant milestones from the Quarter Horse Association over the years have attracted the likes of Olympic gold medalist show jumpers to the arena in some of their show jumping events. They've had significant national and international winners in the likes of reining and cutting that have all been attracted to the facility here in Pyramid Hill. And great to be able to celebrate their 50th year of running their very special complex. There was a great plaque unveiled recognising the Bird family who dug the first hole and laid the first arena fence post all those years ago, and it was a really great to be involved in the cutting of the ribbon and unveiling that very significant plaque that really concretes the importance of that facility in the Pyramid Hill landscape, and some very special local people involved in that group that attract such a significant interest from the equine industry. You know, we are very strong across Loddon in our equine industry. We know we've got some great trotting facilities. We've got a number of great thoroughbred farms and breeders too, and we've got some very significant quarter horse facilities right at our doorstep that can be utilised. And I encourage anyone who's got an interest in any equine or horse sports, make yourself known to the Northern Vic Quarter Horse Association, and you might just find a job there as a volunteer or a participant in their upcoming events. Really great to have those community groups working in our areas, and I was very welcome and encourage the community group to stay proactive and look forward to their next event. I'll just move forward to the 11th. We had our council forum followed by our special council meeting to appoint the mayor. Again, just a great shout out to my fellow councillors who seen the confidence in me for a fourth term as Loddon Shire Mayor. I'm very privileged and honoured to represent Loddon Shire in the capacity of Mayor, and really look to a great working relationship with my fellow councillors and all the staff and community for the next 12 months. It's something I hold with great importance in my life, and I really look forward to the next 12 months in the role. And finishing off, as part of Loddon Shire's advocacy in our water, irrigation water conversation, I had the opportunity to travel to Adelaide for a Murray-Darling Basin Leadership Summit, where representing Loddon and our Murray River group of councils in the second day of a 2-day leadership summit, where we actually got to influence hugely in the aspect of how the Murray-Darling Basin plan will be rolled out over the next 5 years. There's going to be some changes that we still haven't ironed out yet, but we were also addressed by the Minister Watt, made an announcement that we kind of weren't expecting, and I can say pretty honestly that we in Loddon weren't very happy with, that the open market buybacks will continue at this point in time, and they are looking at recovering another 130 gig out of the consumptive pool of our regional irrigation district. So that was not great news to hear. Somewhat, I would say, not unexpected, but nonetheless, with conversations that we'd had with the Minister in the past in Canberra, we actually thought that there might have been some changes to the plan, but at this point in time, the announcement is the Murray-Darling Basin plan is geared up to recoup another 130 gig out of open market buybacks, which Loddon Shire and the Murray River Group will continue to oppose. We think there's a better way, and it needs to be driven from the ground up. That's one of the important things I think we got out of the Leadership Summit, is we got through to the powers to be that this has to be a ground up driven process, and local government has a big role to play alongside our landholders and our irrigators. So it was quite interesting, the platform that the summit worked on, where it was really interactive, and the participants actually had the opportunity to host their own workshops. So there was lots of workshops happening that participants were actually leading and running from the ground. So different format to what I expected, but nonetheless, it was very worthwhile being there. And again, our presence as Loddon Shire and Murray River Group had a big impact on the other people in the room. So that was quite important for us to have a presence there and to really have some key influence in the next phase of the planning parameters around Murray-Darling Basin and trying to leverage the best opportunities for our irrigation sector while still looking at the benefits for the environment. I'm going to leave it there. There's a lot more to touch on, but I will finish my mayoral report and ask if there's a councillor prepared to move that verbal report be accepted. Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Angelo to second. Thank you very much. Show of hands in favour. And that is carried. Excellent. We'll move on to 9.1, our councillor reports. And today I'm going to go across to Councillor Holt, and we'll start with Councillor Holt and move around the room from there.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't ever recall having the honour of leading this. I was very disappointed to hear in your report, Mr Mayor, given Loddon Shire's position on the open market buybacks of irrigation water for conservation purposes. That's disappointing news for the Loddon Shire. Yeah. On November the 3rd, I met with our consultants, Sue Masters and Kath Blytho, regarding the work they're doing for us on the best way forward for our visitor information centre, or possibly /centres. On the 11th, the council forum here at Wedderburn. On that day, I did participate in the production of your mayoral social media output for the day, Mr Mayor. You can pass on to our communications officer. I won't be doing that again out in the open on a windy day. On the 17th of the 11th, I attended the Internal Audit and Risk Committee, and how time flies, Mr Mayor, Mr Rod Proxon has been a community member on that committee. It'll be 12 years come February, and at that point his mandatory clause there on a maximum of 12 years participation will mean that he's no longer on that committee. And also, Mr Mayor, and I think Mr Fitzgerald has flagged this, we might be looking at some possible amendments to our Audit and Risk Committee charter. Last night I attended the Donaldson Park Community Asset Committee meeting, and after 25 years as the chairman, Mr Mayor, it was different and enjoyable to be an ordinary committee member. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. And I think it's probably quite appropriate to thank and congratulate you individually for your tenure on that Donaldson Park Committee. That's a long stint, and some great leadership shown, and obviously some great project that was delivered over 12 months ago with the new Donaldson Park Precinct development, which has been a big part of your work on that committee. Also, Councillor Holt must acknowledge Mr Rod Poxon too for his time on the Audit and Risk Committee. We thank him very much and appreciate that volunteerism and that commitment to that committee over those 12 years of his tenure. And we look forward to welcoming new community members onto the Audit and Risk in the future. Councillor Holt, did you have anything else to add there?
Oh no, we're very fortunate, Mr Mayor. We've got a very good internal Audit and Risk Committee, and we've also got a very, very good, over many, many years, Donaldson Park Committee of Management. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. And yeah, a lot more positive years to come from all of our community committees, no doubt. I'm going to go to Councillor Angelo, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On the 11th of November, I attended the council meeting in Wedderburn Chambers. On the 14th of November, I had a meeting with the CEO in Newbridge. It's good to catch up and talk about everything that's going on and will be going on. And looking forward to the Australia Day Committee meeting next week. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Angelo. And excuse me, and before we go on, I'd also just mention and welcome our gallery. Thank you for being with us today. We welcome our gallery and also welcome anyone that takes an interest in our council matters. I'm going to move on to Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. On the 30th of October, I did a video with the Mayor for his, for the weekly mayoral update, which was quite traumatising. So that was done. That evening I had the IDTC, the Inglewood District Tourism Committee meeting, their monthly meeting, and also that day we had the Bridgewater Inglewood Streetscape structure plan public forum in Brook Street in Inglewood for the public to come and provide feedback on what's going on with that structure plan piece of work. They've had quite a good response online. And I would encourage the community to please look out for any information and opportunities to provide feedback on that structure plan, because that's going to be so important, not necessarily for us in the next couple of years, but over the next 50, 60, 70, 100 years. On the 11th of October, we had the council forum where we elected Mayor Straub as the mayor. That evening had the Campbell's Forest AGM. The committee that existed was re-elected, which was good to see. On the 17th, I attended ARC as the backup to Councillor Holt. On the 19th, I attended the council rooms here with a lot of council officers for a presentation by the Public Sector Gender Equity Commissioner, who provided information on her legislative powers and the reach she has in terms of enforcement, and telling us what and what not to do in terms of gender equity. I actually think it's almost a lag activity with the way society's actually managing it themselves. But some of the information she provided, some of the examples of where it is important, really was very interesting. I think the one that's most interesting, of course, and most of us will have experienced it, is that when we go to public forums like theatres or concerts and things like that, when there's an interval, the men's toilets has a flow of people going in and out quite quickly, and the women's toilets has a queue going around the corner, and that's simply because women take longer to go to the toilet than men do. And we need more time, and so we need more cubicles. So those are sort of naturally evolving pieces of society and infrastructure that are evolving without the need for a very highly paid public servant to enforce it all. But nonetheless, some of her data was very interesting. And on the 20th, I attended the Bridgewater on Loddon development meeting, which is always an exciting meeting, and Bold has a terrific membership and turnout. There's generally between 10 and 12 people at that meeting every month, which I think is very good compared to some of the other community groups. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Another very busy month. And I'll go to Councillor Weaver, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On the 3rd of the 11th, I attended the Boort Tourism and Development meeting, and they've got some new people on the committee there, which is good. And always good to have some fresh faces. From that, I got the Goldmurray Water have been down and looked at the dangerous channel bank behind the Boort Caravan Park, and they're looking to make some repairs next winter, which was good to know. On the 11th, I attended a forum here where we re-elected Mayor Straub. Last Friday, Manager Southcombe and I attended the Rail Freight Alliance meeting in Melbourne, where we heard a speaker from Pacific National and also an address from the National Rail Manager of GrainCorp. An alarming piece of information that I heard was that if all the mineral sands mines get going, there'll be no capacity for any farmers' grain to be carted by rail anymore. So they're very worrying times ahead for us there. Haymaking's almost complete in the north and harvest is underway. The Boort Grain Cooperative's already received 60,000 tonne of grain this year, and GrainCorp's received about 5. Yesterday, I met with CEO Mr Fitzgerald in Boort for our annual catch-up, and with Mr Van also we had a tour of the Boort Grain Cooperative, which was good for them to experience it working. And then just on those water buybacks, in a cost of living crisis, to take more water off farmers so less food's produced, therefore putting up the cost of food, just beggars belief. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. That concludes our council law reports, but just before I ask for a councillor to move, I was very happy with our mayoral video interviews, and I thank you all for your participation, and I'm going to do the rounds again in the new year. So I really look forward to that. It's great. I like that conversational aspect of it, and I quite enjoy doing the mayoral columns for the community. Councillor Holt?
Thank you.
Microphone.
Yeah, it's on. Just a question, if you don't mind, of Councillor Weaver. Councillor Weaver, who determined that the mineral sands would get priority over the grain?
Good question. Councillor Weaver?
I've got no idea, but that's where that came from GrainCorp's National Rail Manager.
Okay.
So they're probably, I'm not sure, but maybe they've got more capacity to pay dearer freight.
Oh, yeah.
It all has to be in sealed wagons, so I'd say it would be a lot dearer freight. And it'd be all year round.
Thank you, councillors. Everyone's been very, very busy again over the month of November. We are closing in on the end of the year very, very quickly. Nonetheless, we've got a lot to get through today. I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move those council reports be accepted. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. Councillor Weaver to second. Thank you very much. Show of hands in favour. And they are carried. Moving along, we have councillors 6 reports for decision today, and we'll start off with 10.1, our council meeting schedule, and I'll ask Director Stedman to deliver the report and recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. Councillors, this report with you today proposes a schedule for council meetings for the 2026 calendar year as permitted by council's governance rules. Setting these dates in advance provides clarity for councillors, officers and the community as to when council decisions are expected to be made over the course of the year. Councillors, the recommendation with you today for this report is that Council 1 approves the schedule of council meetings for for 2026 contained within this report, and 2, provides public notice of the 2026 schedule of council meetings in accordance with council's governance rules. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Steadman. Councillors, fairly straightforward report and recommendation on this one, but is there any questions? If not, I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move to the recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor to second. Councillor Angelo, thank you. Councillor Wilson, I'll give you the opportunity to speak if you'd like to motion.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Angelo, if you'd like.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Excellent. In that case, I'll ask for a show of hands in favour, and that is carried. Thank you very much. That being carried, that schedule of meetings will be out for public view, but anyone who has already read the agenda will have a heads up on those council dates, as the agendas go public on the Thursday prior to any Tuesday council meeting. Moving along, 10.2, our Civil Infrastructure Works Panel, and I'll ask Director Van also, please, report and the recommendation to follow.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. I'm pleased to present the report on Contract C650, Civil Infrastructure Works Panel. This initiative presents a significant step toward improving operational efficiency and supports Council's long-term financial planning measures required to maintain long-term financial sustainability. By establishing this panel, we are creating a streamlined process to engage contractors for maintenance, renewal, upgrade and restoration works. This approach ensures compliance with the procurement policy whilst delivering value for Council and the community. The tender process attracted strong interest with 17 conforming submissions, demonstrating capability and capacity to meet our needs. This panel will enable us to deliver high quality outcomes, maintain flexibility and achieve cost efficiencies across a range of civil infrastructure works. The recommendation before you is that Council, number 1, appoint the confirming companies to C650 Civil Infrastructure Works Panel: Bernie Fleming, Central Vic Stabilising, Countrywide Asphalt, Earthlink Civil, Eco Infrastructure and Engineering, Inroads, JMM, Main Civil Pty Ltd, RE Civil Pty Ltd, S&N Road Stabilising Pty Ltd, S&R Engineering, Sydney Civil Com, SJK Excavations Pty Ltd, Stabilised Pavements Australia, Goldfields Pavements Pty Ltd, MCM Services and Yusuf Civil Constructions. And number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to undertake the necessary administrative actions to complete the contract documents. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Van also. Councillors, is there any questions at this stage? I've got two questions. I'll go Councillor Holt, then Councillor Weaver. Sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think I know the answer to my question, but to the Director, are any of the 18 members of that Infrastructure Works Panel based in Loddon?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, not directly in Loddon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wilson, question?
Yeah, thank you. Director Van also, sorry, did you say there were 17 tenderers?
Through you, Mayor, there was 17 conforming tenders.
Conforming.
Yes.
Could you how many applications were there?
Yep, so through you, Mayor, we had a total of 28 tenderers apply.
So I think that would be rather promising for that work, considering we've had discussions about supplies, materials, threats and risks we've got about renewables and things like that, I think that's quite reassuring. My other question, just if I may, you may need to take this on notice, but in terms of the procurement process, we're talking about different spends. We talk about quotes via panel and quote to the panel members. Are those written submissions?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor, that's correct.
Thank you.
So they've submitted a written submission, and through our procurement process, when we need to obtain firm quotes, we'll go back to this panel as our go-to.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors, for those questions. Thank you, Director, for the information relayed back. Councillors, we'll move to formalising the recommendation. Is there a councillor prepared to move to the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor Holt, opportunity to speak to the motion? No. Councillor Weaver as a seconder? No. Any other councillors wishing to speak for or against? Show of hands in favour. That is carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 10.3. Contract C660, Annual Reseal 2025-2026. And I'll ask Director Van Also again for recommendation and report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. I'm pleased to present the report on Contract C660, Annual Reseals for the 2025-2026. These works are a vital part of our annual infrastructure program and reflects Council's ongoing commitment to maintain safe, high-quality roads for our community. The tender process attracted strong interest, and Inroads Pty Ltd has been identified as the preferred contractor, offering value for money, sustainability. The recommendation before you is, number 1, award contract C660 Annual Reseals 2025-2026 to Inroads Pty Ltd. Number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to utilise any unallocated portion of budgeted funds to cover any required variations and design adjustments within the annual reseal program. Number 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to reallocate any remaining funds after completion of the reseal program to other projects under the Roads to Recovery program. And number 4, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to undertake the necessary administrative actions to complete the contract documents. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director. Councillors, is there any questions at this point? If not, sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Through you, Mayor, can I ask why the contract's only for 1 year?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Director?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilson. So the program is developed using condition data. So the condition data is collated over a 4-year period. So we collate a program year by year. There, however, is capacity in future to look at, say, a 2 or 3 year contract, and that's an improvement that we can look at further down the track. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Director. I thought, Mayor, that would just, provide an economy. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Holt?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor, I assume the size of this contract, I would view this as an operational matter. So I'm assuming the size of the contract exceeds the CEO's authority. Thanks. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Good to clarify that, Councillor Holt. There is, 4-part recommendation in front of us. With those questions clarified, is there any further questions? Otherwise, I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Was it Councillor Weaver to second? Thank you. Councillor Wilson, I'll give you the opportunity to speak to the motion if you'd like. Councillor Weaver? No. In that case, a show of hands in favour. And that is carried. Thank you very much. 10.4, Fraud and Corruption Control Policy version 6 and our Fraud and Corruption Control Panel. I'll ask Director Steadman to take us through the recommendation and the report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. Councillors, I present this report concerning the review of Council's policy on fraud and corruption control and a new fraud and corruption control plan. The proposed version 6 of the policy will continue to serve as a safeguard against unethical behaviour, maintaining responsible use of public resources and upholding the trust placed in Council by the community. As an organisation utilising community funds, it's critical that we maintain a vigilance against fraud and corruption and maintain the currency of this policy by incorporating revisions in best practice and terminology that can enhance the policy's clarity and effectiveness. Also presented for your consideration is the newly prepared Fraud and Corruption Control Plan, which will assist the organisation to implement the policy. It is noted that both of these documents have been reviewed by Loddon Shire Council's Audit and Risk Committee with feedback to strengthen some of the language incorporated into the documents before you today. Having consideration to the report provided councillors and noting the support of Council's Audit and Risk Committee in this matter, the recommendation asks that Council adopt the Fraud and Corruption Control Policy version 6 and 2 Fraud and Corruption Control Plan version 1. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Steadman. Councillors, I'll give the opportunity for any questions regarding. If not, sorry, Councillor Holt.
Yeah, look, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just an observation. The requirement for the CEO to report around this issue to the Internal Audit and Risk Committee, it's been my observation over the years that there's very, very rarely a report by the CEO to that committee in relation to fraud and corruption. So that indicates a couple of things. We're all honest people at Loddon, Mr Mayor, but the control policies and the control policy is working. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you for that observation. That's some great intel to convey out to the community. Councillors, is there a councillor prepared to move, or Councillor Wilson with a question?
May I ask, how often do we review the policy, Director Steadman?
I believe it's every 4 years, Councillor Wilson. However, this review has come about in 12 months due to changes in the standard and also to implement the control plan as well. So it's actually come forth prior to the 4-year review cycle.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you, Director. Councillors, we've got the two-part recommendation in front of us that Council adopts the Fraud and Corruption Control Policy version 6. Sorry, we just temporarily lost our audio. As mentioned, the recommendation in front of us, councillors, is 1, adopt the Fraud and Corruption Control Panel version 6, policy version 6, and the Fraud and Corruption Control Plan version 1. Is there a councillor prepared to move? Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. Councillor Weaver, as always, opportunity to speak to the motion.
No, but I think, sir, sorry, Mayor Straub, and you know the fraud side of it with internet fraud, it's concerning times, and let's just hope we can keep our good record. And not many incidences of fraud happening in Loddon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor Angelo.
Look, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just quickly, a lot of work gone into this document, updating it so that it's you know, keeping ahead of everything that it needs to. So just a comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Angelo. Is there any other councillor wishing to speak for or against? I'll ask for a show of hands in favour, and that is carried. Thank you. Moving along to 10.5, our draft domestic animal management plan 2026 to 2029 for public display. I'll ask Director Gladman, please, for the report and the recommendation we've got in front of us today.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. Councillors, today I'm presenting the draft Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026 to 2029 and seeking council endorsement to place it on public display. Under the Domestic Animals Act, council is required to prepare a new plan every 4 years. The draft before you sets out how we will meet our responsibilities for the management of dogs and cats in the Shire, which includes officer training, responsible pet ownership, compliance, reducing attacks and nuisance, and ongoing reporting. To inform the draft, we undertook community engagement in August this year, and that included an online survey and 7 listening posts across the municipality, with 93 responses received. The feedback showed strong support for responsible pet ownership and high awareness of registration and microchipping requirements. The most common concerns raised were roaming cats, cat-related nuisance, and roaming dogs. There was also strong support for accessible microchipping and desexing programs. The plan also recognises our rural context, our large geographic area, dispersed communities and limited access to local veterinary services. As a result, the plan focuses on practical and achievable actions aligned with the capacity of our small compliance team. The core statutory functions can be delivered within existing resources. Any aspirational actions, such as the expanded trapping programs or targeted microchipping and desexing programs, would only proceed if external funding or future budget allocations were secured. The plan provides clear direction for council, improves community safety and amenities, supports better animal welfare outcomes, and ensures we continue to meet our legislative obligations. At this stage, we are seeking approval to place the draft plan on public exhibition. This will allow the community to review the document and provide further input before a final version is brought back to council for adoption in the new year. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Gladman. Councillors, is there any questions at this point? Queries, comments? Otherwise, I will ask a councillor prepared to move to the recommendation that this draft domestic animal management plan be put on public display to seek community feedback. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Angelo. Councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Angelo, the opportunity to speak to the motion if you'd like.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would just urge community members to review this and provide feedback, because it really is going to be, it's a legislative obligation which comes with potentially a cost that needs to be managed. So the more community feedback we have on that, the more able we are to manage it. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Any other councillor wishing to speak for or against? I'll ask for a show of hands in favour. Show of hands in favour. That is carried. Thank you, councillors. We can move on to 10.6. Our finance report for the quarter ending 30th of September 2025. I will ask Director Steadman to please take us through the quarterly report recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mayor Straub. Councillors, this report goes over the Q1 financials to September 30, 2025, comparing actual results with budget for the first 3 months of the 25-26 financial year, as required by the Local Government Act 2020. At the end of Q1, Council has a year-to-date operating surplus of $7.51 million, and while materials and services are currently tracking unfavourable to budget, once capitalisation of some of that work is finalised in Q2, within the flood restoration program particularly, we'll see this line tracking favourably. Investment income also continues to track favourably as our reserves and current operating surplus mean Council is currently experiencing high levels of cash in our investment portfolio. Rate notices, including the state government's Emergency Services and Volunteers Fund levy, were issued this quarter with just over $14 million raised, which will be paid down throughout the year through various methods. Capital delivery in financial terms was just over $1 million for quarter one as programs and projects are initiated. However, I'd encourage this to be considered, noting the materials and services year-to-date overspend yet to be catalysed, and should also be viewed in conjunction with items 11.5 and 11.6 on today's agenda, being the quarterly updates for the annual infrastructure and flood restoration programs, which outline further on-the-ground updates. The quarter also saw a number of key statutory reporting deadlines met by the team and the wider organisation, which are also noted in the report. Councillors, the recommendation with you for this report is that Council receives and notes the finance report for the quarter ending 30 September 2025. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Steadman. Councillors, we've got a report there in front of us. I'll offer any questions, queries or comments firstly. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, just 5.2 on the expenditure, the Inglewood Community Plan. You've allocated $700 from the Kingour First Aid to Inglewood, which that belongs in the Tarnagulla ward. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Good pick up, no doubt an error that can be rectified there.
Thank you.
Good pick up. If no other questions, councillors? Yeah, Councillor Holt. Sorry. In that case, I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move to the recommendation that the council receives and notes the financial report. Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor Holt, opportunity to speak to the motion.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Can I say, it's very pleasing to see what a close eye Councillor Wilson does keep on our finances when she get down to $700. Mr Mayor, I'm going to, I'm moving to the staff recommendation as the motion, but as you would know, and as I raised earlier, I do have some concerns around our financial reporting. Now, it's a question of how much you want to drill down into this, but I have a real problem, and this is required by the model reporting that's imposed upon us. But by and large, after 3 months in, the operating income statement is really not all that relevant because it's the way it's treated. For example, just a quick example, we planned on raising 13.6 million in rates and charges, and 3 months in, we're still planning on raising 13.6, did I say 3 or 13? 13.6 million in rates and charges. So that's what appears in the income statement because those rates and charges are invoiced. But then when we move down to the grants section, we are planning on getting 13 million in operating grants and 3.8 million in capital grants, but because they're treated in a different way, we say in the year to date that those two figures are 4,200,000. So in other words, in terms of the final result, it doesn't line up. So just a couple more, Mr Mayor. I would also point out, which you've heard me say many, many times, that the most useful report in the financial report at this point of the year, and even at the end of the year, for councillors and members of the public, is go straight to the cash flow statement, because that gives us a point in time snapshot of where we're at, which to my mind is the purpose of this report. The other thing that sticks out to me, Mr Mayor, is we are forevermore being reminded of the long-term financial plan and its implications for the long-term financial stability of Loddon. It's very difficult to weigh that up against the fact that our cash at bank and other financial assets is remaining pretty stable. And we're saying we've got a budgeted deficit of 7 million and we're going to have just nearly as much money in the bank as when we started. That's all to do with the depreciation component of the plan. So what I'm saying is, I'm not as concerned about the long-term financial stability of Loddon as the long-term financial plan indicates, because the long-term financial plan assumes business as usual. And that won't be what happens. So I think that's important that the public and everybody understands that. So when you look at that long-term financial plan, just take on board what it really means. So look, we are requiring the staff to present us every quarter with the finance report. As each quarter passes, the financial report becomes more, how would I say, significant and reflective of the true situation. And by the time we get to the end of the March quarter, if things were out of kilter, we'd be asking some pretty severe questions. But as of this quarter, it's pretty distorted, because in terms, say, for example, of capital works expenditure, a lot of the time in capital works expenditure is setting up the whole show. In terms of getting ready, getting contracts, getting sorted as to what we're doing. So therefore it's not reflected in the expenditure. So accepting that it is what it is, we understand its limitations. I'm quite happy to move that we accept the motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. And I also must note the explanation back out into the community that you've just mentioned is very important for the community to help understand. And this is something that we have utmost importance, that we deal with our finances responsibly and in the best interest of our communities. So thank you for moving that. Now, the seconder, Councillor Weaver. Did you have the opportunity to speak, Councillor Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank Councillor Holt for his expertise today in explaining this pretty complicated accounting system to us, and it's helped us get our heads around it a bit more. So thank you, Councillor Holt.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Any other councillors wishing to speak for? Councillor Wilson?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment that I think is interesting for the community and the public to understand is that we have this model accounts framework that we must comply with, that is being delivered to us as a state government requirement under legislation. And that model financial management and accounts and reporting does not necessarily provide us with all the information we potentially need on the ground. So it's a very labour-intensive process for our officers when they've got obligations that have been applied to them through state government legislation, which may or may not be meaningful or of value to us as councillors in terms of understanding what's going on. Just a comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wishing to speak for or against? I'll ask for a show of hands in favour, and that is carried. Thank you, councillors. The finances are a very complex topic, and I think we've got a very good handle as a council group on managing these financial reports and finances at this point in time. We have been very responsible over the years to do a lot with a little, and we need to really keep the finger on the pulse when it comes to forward forecasting and actuals compared to invoiced income statements. We'll move on. Councillors will move into some information reports, and we've got 6 information reports today. So we'll start with 11.1, our Road Management Plan Compliance Report. Director Van also, please. Report and recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. This report provides an important update on our performance under the Road Management Plan for the first quarter of 2025-2026 financial year. It demonstrates the strong results we are achieving in maintaining and managing our road network. The data shows that during the first quarter, 99.2% of scheduled inspections were completed on time, and 97.8% of all date imposed defects were rectified within these required time frames, resulting in a very high level of compliance and responsiveness. The report also highlights significant progress in our maintenance grading program, with over 770 kilometres graded across the Shire, supporting safer road conditions and accessibility. Overall, this report confirms that Council is performing strongly against the road management plan and continues to prioritise safety, efficiency and accountability in managing our road network. I would like to acknowledge the excellent work our staff and works crews who have delivered these outcomes. Their efforts ensure our roads remain safe and reliable for the community. The recommendation before you is that Council receive and note the Road Management Plan Compliance Report. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Van Also. Some great data in that report. Councillors, is there any questions, queries or comments regarding at this point? Thank Councillor Wilson.
Just a comment, something I've learnt today that maybe community members may not be aware of. Loddon Goldfields is the south of the Shire and Loddon Plains is the north of the Shire. I didn't know that.
Great observation, and a lot of people probably wouldn't know that, Councillor Wilson, either. Councillors, if there's no further questions, queries or comments, I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move that this information report be tabled. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor to second. Councillor Angelo, thank you. Councillor Weaver, would you like the opportunity to speak?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Angelo.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Another document that's had a lot of work put into it, so well done by all involved.
Thank you, councillors. And noting before I ask for a show of hands, 99.2% compliance rate is pretty impressive, and that's a continuous figure we get through these reports. So well done to the team and the outdoor crews out there on the roads in the machines, making it a great place to live, work and thrive. Show of hands in favour, councillors. Carried. Thank you very much. 11.2, the Community Wellbeing Directorate Quarterly Activity Report, Quarter 1, July through to September 2025. Director Gladman, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. Councillors, I'm pleased to present the Community Wellbeing Directorate Quarterly Activity Report for Quarter 1. This is the first quarterly report for 25-26 financial year, but it is also the first combined Directorate report format. It consolidates the former community compliance and public health reports and expands to include the broader functions delivered through the Community Wellbeing Directorate. As some of this data is new, there will be further updates in the quarterly reports that will show trend data, but some of this for this period will stand in isolation. The Directorate has responsibility for a wide range of services that support the health, safety and wellbeing of our community, and this quarter's report outlines the key activities and outcomes across several areas, including our kindergarten services, with 82 children enrolled across 5 centres, representing a 65% utilisation of our available capacity. Our forward projection showing, at the time of the report was written, 67 enrolments, which equates to a 69% utilisation. And the variance in the numbers and the percentages because next year's report excludes the places that would normally be available at Wedderburn. While the overall capacity appears sufficient, we have to be careful in Loddon because the geographic spread of services means that vacancies do not always align with the areas of demand. There were 6 service closures during the quarter, predominantly due to staffing shortages and illnesses. This represented 4.5% of the scheduled sessions, and efforts are made to minimise the disruption for families. In our maternal and child health area, we had 15 birth notifications, slightly down from 18 in the same quarter last year, and our immunisation program delivered 38 vaccinations through community sessions and school programs. Our community compliance activity continued throughout the quarter, with the team attending to 5 after-hours animal management call-outs, 1 illegal dumping investigation and issuing 31 local law permits. The complaints received included 24 livestock-related matters, 7 dog attacks with 2 involving injury to people, and 32 domestic animal issues alongside 105 general complaints. The Unsightly Properties program saw 6 cases resolved, leaving 11 active, and the impoundment activity shifted markedly during the quarter, with livestock impoundments dropping to 0 compared to 87 in the previous quarter, while dog impoundments rose to 55, largely due to unregistered animals and welfare concerns. Encouragingly, all impounded dogs and cats were either reclaimed or successfully rehoused. Planning compliance also remained active, with 18 new matters identified, and with 8 resolved, 25 cases were left ongoing. In the environmental health area, our Environmental Health Officer conducted 61 inspections of registered premises, including food and health businesses, with only 2 major non-compliances identified. 13 Tobacco Act inspections were completed and 21 septic system permits were issued. The public health complaints were minimal, with 2 new matters received and 1 resolved. Council's community support program continued to provide funding for local initiatives. 4 community grants were awarded, totalling $12,849. Event sponsorship assisted 3 major and 13 minor events during the quarter, with the major events including the Melbourne Cup Tour at Bridgewater, the LVFNL Grand Final at Newbridge, and the Wedderburn Historical Engine and Machinery Society Annual Rally. Facility support funding agreements were distributed to 25 of the 75 eligible halls and reserves, while water subsidies and newsletter funding remained largely unclaimed this quarter. Community planning has 17 recognised committees and 13 current plans based on the community planning framework, and they all guide our local priorities. Councillors, the recommendation before you is that Council receive and note the Community Wellbeing Directorate Quarterly Activity Report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Gladman. Councillors, I'll open it up for any questions regarding that information report. Councillor Wilson.
There's a lot in the media around, illegal tobacco sales and the crime associated with that. In terms of the Tobacco Act inspections of these retailers and the retailers, are those registered tobacco retailers, or are we aware of any illegal tobacco sales going on in the Shire? Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. These are for premises who are legally registered to sell tobacco, so we're required to do inspections through there. We don't deal with the illegal tobacco sales in that area, so I'm not aware of any numbers that might be available for that.
And of those inspections, were all 5 of them compliant?
There was no breaches of compliance. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
In that area.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for the questions. Thank you, Director Gladman. Councillors, I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move to the recommendation of noting the quarterly report. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. A councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Angelo, I'll give you the opportunity to speak if you'd like.
No, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Holt. Any other councillor wishing to speak for or against? Show of hands in favour. And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. 11.3. The Development and Compliance Quarterly Activity Report. And I'll ask Director Van also, please, for the report and recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. This first Development and Compliance Quarterly Activity Report provides an update on key activities and outcomes for the first quarter of the 2025-2026 financial year. This report covers the ongoing work of our strategic planning projects, statutory planning, building services, and enforcement activities previously presented as individual reports. It offers Council a comprehensive overview of how the Department is progressing towards its obligations and highlights important achievements. Some key milestones and outcomes from the first quarter include Wedderburn Flood Management Plan, officially launched, including the establishment of the Project Reference Committee and the first community consultation session. Bridgewater and Inglewood structure plans. The project is progressing well with significant engagement. Background information has been compiled, site visits conducted. The background paper is currently being finalised. Planning Scheme Amendment C48. The draft amendment documents have been submitted to the Department of Transport and Planning for review. Planning permit processing. 100% of all planning permit applications were assessed and issued within the required statutory 60-day timeframe. Building services and permits. There has been an increase in building permits issued, with a total value over $11.8 million in quarter 1 2025-2026. Enforcement activities. Ongoing enforcement works include unsafe buildings, work without permit and buildings damaged by fire. The team has resolved several long-standing enforcement matters, helping to maintain compliance and public safety. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all staff involved in their hard work and continued dedication throughout the quarter. The recommendation before you is that Council receive and note the Development and Compliance Quarterly Activity Report. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Van also, and quite significant investment within our local community too within that quarter. And again, planning permit approvals hitting a very high benchmark too of a lot of them within the 35-day period. So that's some really good data there. Councillors, opportunity to ask any quick questions or queries. If not, ask for Councillor prepared to move to the quarterly report. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor prepared to second. Councillor Holt. Thank you. Councillor Weaver, opportunity to speak if you'd like.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's just great to see, as you said, over $11 million worth of new building for the quarter in Loddon. Great to see, and good to see the planning department getting the permits completed in such quick time. They're always consistent on that, and it's great to see. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Holt, any other councillor wishing to speak for or against? I'll ask for a show of hands in favour, and that is carried. Thank you very much. 11.4. The Executive Directorate Quarterly Activity Report, Quarter 1, July through September 2025. Mr Fitzgerald, please.
Thank you, Mayor. The development of this report consolidates a number of reports into one, as my colleagues have done. Councillors, you'll note today that we've done this for quite a few of these reports. Because we do have such a broad range of services, we don't want to be providing 40 reports each quarter for you to try and consider all the work that goes on across the organisation. So I do just want to thank all the staff who've gone to the effort of trying to combine these, and we really welcome feedback on what is useful to make sure that we're providing you with data that is helpful in your role, but also helpful to the community to understand all of the different things that we do here at Council. Councillors, this report itself includes an extensive list of the service performance across library services, tourism and economic development, and our caravan parks as well. You'll see there's quite a number of indicators in there that are really positive. A few examples: 2.97% annual growth in regional productivity each year since 2016. What a fantastic outcome that is to date, and we hope to continue that. Modest population growth. Obviously, that's one that we like to keep an eye on. Improvements to our caravan parks through both capital works at those facilities, with the 10 cabins having gone in at Bridgewater Caravan Park, as well as Council investing in the refit of the original amenities block down there to repair flood damage that we were unable to secure through insurance. But even the tenancy rates at those parks are fabulous. Once again, strong library membership and loans as well as visitation, and we've got some metrics set up there where we can benchmark across the library agencies, but also some of those we'll be able to benchmark across Victoria in the future. Visitor spend, I really liked that data around the number of events, the number of people who participated, and the visitor spend continuing to perform well. And finally, just pointing out the engagement with council's media platforms has increased dramatically. So people are showing an interest in the services and activities that are going on in Loddon, and I hope all of that helps to deliver upon the council plan and community vision. Councillors, the recommendation of this report is that council receive and note the Executive Directorate Quarterly Activity Report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. Councillors, opportunity for any questions? Councillor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Fitzgerald, I find the spend map a little bit confusing. We have had conversations about it before because, like, the farmers in our towns are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with their local fertiliser distributors and chemical companies. Now, because that spend goes back to the head offices of those companies, does it not show up as being spent in Loddon?
Yeah, I believe the spend map data does focus more on the card spend ultimately, so it doesn't pick up cash spend, and it also won't pick up on invoices through another location ultimately. I'll have to take on notice in terms of breaking that down any further, and we can show you a full dashboard of all the different categories of spend occurring within Loddon.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. That'd be good to see.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver, for the question. Any further questions? I'll ask then if there's a councillor prepared to move. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor prepared to second. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. Councillor Weaver, I'll give you the opportunity to speak to the motion if you'd like.
I think it's it.
Councillor Angelo?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other councillor wishing to speak for? Against? I'll ask for a show of hands in favour. And that is carried. Thank you very much, councillors. We're getting through today's agenda. 11.5, the Annual Infrastructure Program 2025 to 2026 Quarterly Update. Director Van also again, been very busy today.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. This quarterly report provides an update on the Annual Infrastructure Program for 2025-26 as at the end of September. This program is a key part of Council's commitment to renew infrastructure assets across the Shire. The program currently includes 66 individual projects, and at the end of the first quarter, 4 projects have been completed and 46 projects are in progress. This demonstrates strong momentum early in the financial year and reflects the proactive approach taken by our teams to keep projects moving. The report also includes updated project lists for the Parks and Gardens and local roads construction. These updates ensure that resources are allocated efficiently and that we continue to deliver improvements that meet community needs. For example, new landscaping projects in Bridgewater and Tarnagulla and irrigation works at Port Memorial Hall. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the excellent work of our staff and works crews. Managing 66 projects across multiple categories is a significant undertaking, and their efforts are critical to ensuring projects remain on track and risks are managed effectively. Overall, the program is progressing well. This report provides transparency on performance, highlights areas where adjustments are proposed, and outline strategies to ensure successful delivery by the end of the financial year. The recommendation before you is that Council, number 1, note progress on the Annual Infrastructure Program 2025-26 as at September 2025, and 2, note the updated project list for the Parks and Gardens and local roads construction asset preservation work category. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Van also. Councillors, is there any questions firstly? Councillor Holt first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, there are 3 red flags in this report, listed as off track. They being the Denali Inglewood Road, the Parks and Gardens or Townscape Services, and the domestic pound, all off track. Could we have an explanation in regard to those as to what is meant by off track? Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. Director?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Straub. Just in regards to the off-track, the definition is in respect to whether there is any issues with them being delivered by June 30. We've identified that Denali Inglewood Road, in respect to vegetation approvals, won't meet that date. So the report states that job will be that will continue in the design and approvals phase and be reallocated to next financial year, and Newbridge Road will be extended. And in respect to the Parks and Gardens Townscape Services program, that allocation was not yet determined, and that's been reported here today. So thank you, Mayor Straub.
And the third one?
Sorry, Councillor Holt, there was a third part there.
So I might defer to Director Gladman for that update.
Thank you. Thank you, Director. Thanks, Director Gladman.
Councillor Holt, this one is a timing issue as well. So this was originally planned to be delivered in the 25-26 financial year. We're still working through that scoping. We're trying to refine that project down to reduce costs as much as possible. So we're just taking a little bit longer time to do that, just to get it right, which means that by the time we order things and get them delivered, it may well just slip it over to the next financial year.
Did I read somewhere that's about 160,000 unbudgeted?
136 was the initial
on
estimate.
current projections?
Yes, but we're still working. We think that there's further savings that we can find.
Thank you, Councillor Holt, for the questions, and thank you, Directors, for those responses. I've got a question from Councillor Wilson.
I just wanted to comment on the structure of this report, which we spoke earlier today about. This is the first time, I think, since I've been a councillor, we've actually started being able to see some reporting in a dashboard format where at a glance you can look at the things you want to ask questions about, which is very good. And I look forward to seeing this format in a lot of other reporting that we do. For example, the report we're going to look at next on flooding, where councillors' attention can be directed to where things are not on track. So very happy to see the format. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillors, just to refresh, we've got a two-part recommendation. One, note the progress of the annual infrastructure program 25-26 as at September 25, and two, note the update project list for the Parks and Gardens Local Roads Construction Asset Preservation Works category. Do I have a councillor prepared to move? Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Holt, I'll give you another opportunity to speak to the motion if you'd like.
It's a rather self-explanatory document, Mr Mayor, and my concerns have been addressed.
Excellent.
So I'd like to move to the motion as outlined.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. Councillor Wilson? Councillors wishing to speak for or against? A show of hands in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our last information report, 11.6, our flood restoration progress update. Director Van Orso again, please.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. This report provides an update on the significant progress being made under the flood restoration program. As at 30 September 2025, 250 flood damaged sites have been fully restored, with 11 projects currently underway and a further 180 sites out for tender. In addition, 197 sites are being scoped for tender in the second quarter, ensuring a clear pipeline of works for delivery over the coming months for completion by June 2026, with a strong focus on road shoulder repairs and gravel resheeting. The recommendation before you is that Council receive and note the flood restoration quarterly progress update. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Van Orso. Councillors, firstly, is there any questions? If not, I'll ask for a councillor prepared to move. Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor prepared to second. Councillor Weaver, excellent. Councillor Wilson, would you like the opportunity to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Weaver, opportunity to speak as a seconder.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other councillors wishing to speak? Councillor Holt?
Just a comment, Mr Mayor. Ever since we had this devastating flood in Loddon, we have been concerned for quite a time about the funding of the restoration and the timely delivery of the implementation of the funding. I think we're finally seeing a light at the end of the tunnel here in terms of delivery of restoration of flood damage and in some instances betterment. So this is one of the better reports and more pleasing reports you would receive, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, very true, Councillor Holt. There has been an uphill battle to secure the funding parameters, and as noted in the report, expenditure to date is just over 5 million, but there's still 15.2 expected to expend, and we are really looking forward to finishing those flood restoration projects for the benefit of our community so we can get back on track and get back to business. Councillors, is no other councillors wishing to speak? I'll ask for a show of hands. Councillor Angelo, yeah.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, if you don't mind. Just quickly, reading through this, it's great to see, words like shoulder reconstruction and culvert upgrades and gravel resheets, and it's even better to see completed at the end of those. So there's still a lot to do, but definitely on the way, well on the way. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillors. I'll ask for a show of hands in favour. And that is carried. Councillors, that completes the information reports. We've got 3 compliance reports to consider today, and we'll move straight into 12.1, our Community Asset Committee's annual report to Council. And I'll ask Director Stedman, please, to deliver that report along with the recommendation.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. Councillors, an important component of Council being able to manage its assets effectively is the establishment of community asset committees under Section 65 of the Local Government Act 2020. These committees consist of dedicated community members who give their time and energy to managing their respective community assets as appointed by Council. Also under the Local Government Act 2020 is the obligation for the CEO to provide an annual report to Council on the activities and performance of our 16 community asset committees. As such, this report provides councillors with an overview of how our community asset committees have performed over the course of the 24-25 year, and the recommendation is that Council receives and notes the Chief Executive Officer report on the 24-25 activities and performance of community asset committees. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Stedman. And before I ask if there's any further questions, it is very important that we recognise all those volunteers that make up these Section 65 asset committees. Council couldn't maintain to the level of community expectation as we do without the volunteers running the management and maintenance program of these very important assets to community. So we do thank you very much, and it is very rewarding for us as councillors to sit on those delegated committees as just a member and see the great work that the committees do every month, and great to have a report to reflect that engagement and that success. Councillors, is there any questions? I'll ask for a councillor prepared to move that the report be delivered, received, noted. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. A councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor Angelo, I'll give you the opportunity to speak to the motion if you'd like.
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Weaver. Show of hands in favour. Carried. 12.2, our Community Asset Committee membership for 2025-2026. Director Steadman, please.
Thank you again, Mayor Straub. Councillors, in addition to the annual report on Community Asset Committee's performance just considered by Council, each Community Asset Committee under the instrument of delegation is required to nominate members to be formally appointed by Council for a one-year term. And as acknowledged by Mayor Straub, we are very privileged to have so many volunteers supporting our community assets. And these volunteers are an important part of the Loddon culture, and we look forward to supporting and working with these committees over their member term. Councillors, the recommendation with you today, if you'll bear with me a moment, the Council appoints members as listed in this report to the following Loddon Shire Council Community Asset Committees: Bort Aerodrome, Bort Memorial Hall, Bort Park, Donaldson Park, East Loddon Community Centre, Hard Hill Tourist Reserve, Inglewood Community Elderly Persons Units, Inglewood Community Sports Centre, Corong Vale Mechanics Hall, Corong Vale Sports Centre, Little Lake Bort, Pyramid Hill Memorial Hall, Wedderburn Community Centre, Wedderburn Engine Park and Market Square Reserve, Wedderburn Mechanics and Literary Institute Hall, and Yando Public Hall. Thank you, Mayor Straub.
Thank you, Director Steadman. And looking through the list of community members volunteering for these positions, it looks like all positions have been filled. There's no vacancies on any of those committees that I can see. And we thank those community members again for their dedication. Councillor Wilson with the question.
Yes, through you, Mayor. Director Steadman, councillors are allowed to be members of those groups?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Wilson. So generally our Section 65 Community Asset Committees have a councillor appointed representative.
Yes.
They are generally not part of the membership as such, but are appointed as the council conduit.
So that doesn't really clearly answer my question. Yes, you're a council representative, but as a councillor, can you be on the committee? You know, like a voting member of the committee?
So I would say that with conflict of interest requirements, that it would not be advised that councillors are a voting member of one of these Section 65 committees.
That's what I would have thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. And just to clarify, in my time on the Section 65 committees, non-voting participant in meetings and don't take executive positions on those executive panels. I think that's been a bit of a long-standing tradition that we are that conduit and delegated to those ward committees, but don't participate in the voting or the executive committees. Councillor Weaver.
I think, well, Councillor Holt's just come off 25 years as chairman of Donaldson Park, so you can do it, but you can't vote. Is that right, Councillor Holt?
The background to this, councillors, is, and I'm not sure when it was, but some time ago, we were having some challenges here with concerns raised by the Auditor General around councillors participating in community asset committees and then voting on matters to do with community asset committees. The problem was that in small communities like ours, councillors tend to be involved in many community organisations. So this troubled us for a while, and we actually pushed back against the auditor's outlook, and consequently we said that councillors could still be members of those committees because, in relation to your question, Councillor Wilson, it was only a couple of weeks ago at our special meeting that we appointed councillors to those committees. However, what we did was, in order, and this was a compromise that ended up, I think, being accepted, was that the councillor was a non-voting member of the committee. So there's a compromise there, and I think we're all pretty comfortable with that. So that's sort of the background as to where we arrive. But we are members of the committee because we appoint them. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Holt. Thank you for those questions. Mr Fitzgerald?
Just for absolute clarity, if a councillor is appointed to a community asset committee by the council, so you are appointed formally by council to go on that committee, you do not have a conflict of interest when you return to the council table should a matter come up relating to that committee because you've been appointed for that very purpose. There are some nuances to that, but that's the general, that's what's in the Act.
Thank you for that clarity.
Thank you for the question and the advice around that. I'll ask if there's a councillor prepared to move to the recommendation that council appoints the members as listed in this report to the following Loddon Shire Council Community Asset Committees. Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Councillor to second. Thank you, Councillor Angelo. Councillor Weaver, opportunity to speak if you'd like to the motion.
Oh, no, I think we've just had enough discussion about it, but there's 16 committees here and 7 of them are in board. Just an observation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you for the observation, Councillor. Councillor Angelo, would you like the opportunity to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just think it's a great way to, keep in touch with what the community wants and needs, and, you're putting yourself out there. And, that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor wishing to speak for? No one against. I'll ask for a show of hands in favour, and that is carried. Thank you very much, and once again, thank you to all those dedicated community members that volunteer their time on these very important community assets. Moving along, councillors, to 12.3. This is our last compliance report for today. 12.3 is the notice of motion regarding our childcare advocacy. Councillor Wilson proposed this notice of motion, and I'll hand it over to you to deliver the report and the two-part motion, but I believe there's been a slight changing to the words of part 2, but hasn't changed the intent at all of this notice of motion. So Councillor Wilson, if you'd like, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Straub. If I may, this is part of the learning of a first-year councillor. Just to explain to those perhaps tuning in to this, a notice of motion is where a formal written proposal submitted by a councillor to be discussed and voted on at a future council meeting. So generally, the way we operate is that we have a forum where papers are brought to us generally by council officers, and we discuss them, and those are then forwarded onto a council meeting. A notice of motion is where a councillor decides they want to raise an issue and bring it to a council meeting. So the background to this is that I raised this notice of motion and it was discussed at the council forum on the 11th of November, and I shared my proposed notice of motion with my fellow councillors so we could have the debate and conversation about it at that forum, and then it would the notice of motion would come to this meeting. So that's the difference of a notice of motion versus how a paper normally arrives at the council meeting. So the notice of motion is on childcare advocacy, and there are two parts to the motion. So the first is that the council's September 2024 priorities document be suspended with the priorities document for the November 26 state election. Now then, in the paper, My second motion received from Councillor Weaver an amendment which I have accepted, which I will now read as being able to, because the intention of the amendment is consistent with what I wrote, but perhaps is in better language than what I wrote. As a first notice of motion, I've accepted the amendment. And that is that Council acknowledge and advocate for a fair and equitable rural childcare model wherever it is needed in Loddon Shire. So to that end, I will just talk on the paper and the rationale of raising it. Council-led advocacy to federal and state governments is a vital tool for us to get support for things that impact our shire. So when we have got federal or state elections, advocacy documents are developed and then they are presented to the would-be governments for them to consider and then make commitments at a time of election. So in September of 2024, the Loddon Shire developed a priorities document in preparation for the May 2025 federal election, and in that document was the advocacy piece for the development of a childcare facility in the north of the Shire. The contents of the advocacy around the rural funding and the modelling is very acceptable, but subsequent to that September 24 agreement on that advocacy piece, there has been the development of a working group in the Inglewood region. Now, I'm calling it the Inglewood catchment area because it is not just for the Inglewood ward that this proposed childcare work is being done. It is would impact potentially areas of Terrick Ward and the Tarnagola Ward as well as the development of that. So work has been done. A feasibility study has been completed and is draft and will be finalised within the next couple of weeks with very interesting information about the need for childcare in this area. Notwithstanding, a childcare centre has been committed through no advocacy of the council to the Wedderburn area of the Shire. I understand that the key driving force of urging advocacy for the funding for the North, and in particular potentially in Boort, is to support employment for the Boort Hospital and the surrounding businesses, and that is an imperative for the development of the hospital and the workforce there. It's also an imperative and important for the workforce at the Inglewood District Health Service as well. My point is that I'm not wanting to deny or suggest that anybody should not achieve their objectives around childcare and should not be considered eligible for the funding, but what I would like to see is that the funding is shared within the Shire rather than our advocacy being for it just directed to one area. I will acknowledge, and this is very important, it is not our decision to decide where childcare is placed. We are advocates for it, we are not the decision makers. So we can advocate as much as we want. There may be a case where the decision is taken out of our hands. So if I can just restate the motions, the 2 points of the motion. Sorry. 1, that Council's September 2024 priorities document be superseded with a priorities document for the development of the priorities document for the November 2026 election, and 2, that Council acknowledge and advocate for a fair and equitable rural childcare model wherever it is needed in the Loddon Shire. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Thank you for delivering the 2-point notice of motion, which you have moved to points 1 and 2. And just to clarify too that you're well within your right to amend any of the wording without changing the intent, and it's supported by our Notice of Motion Division 2 in our governance rules under section 19, 4 and 5, subclause. So you're well within your rights to amend that wording. The motion isn't the motion until it's been put. So we've now had the motion moved by Councillor Wilson that Loddon Shire Council September 2024 priorities document be superseded with a priorities document for the November 26 state election. And the second part, can you please read again with the small changes to the wording?
That council acknowledge and advocate for a fair and equitable rural childcare model wherever it is needed in Loddon Shire.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Weaver, thank you very much. That motion has been moved and seconded. Councillor Wilson, being the mover, you've got the opportunity to speak on top of your delivery of the report if you wish.
Not at this stage. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Weaver, as the seconder, opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There's been a fair bit of work go into this, and I think it's very important that we are united, like all kids need childcare. And we're only advocates, but all kids need that opportunity. And, you know, we're only advocates, but we will advocate as hard as we can when time permits. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Weaver. Is there any other councillor wishing to speak for or against? Councillor Holt, speaking for.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am, Mr Mayor. I'm supporting the motion. Just one small difficulty. When the Mayor and the CEO speak on matters publicly regarding Loddon Shire, they have to comply with Loddon Shire policies, strategies and plans. So I am wondering, we did, and I think the date is wrong, but in 2020 we did a childcare feasibility study. Can I get a clarification there, Director Gladman? Was that 20? I think it was 20. It says 16 here. That's neither here nor there actually. But okay. So that childcare strategy, which I supported, prioritised Inglewood and Boort as Loddon Shire's priority targets if there was childcare funding in Loddon. Subsequent to that, completely out of Loddon's hands, it made a decision as to where to put the first childcare facility or early years learning centre in Loddon. So whilst that council commitment through motion is on our book, shouldn't we be rescinding that? Because now we are saying that what we're simply doing is supporting further childcare development across Loddon with demonstrated need. That's fine. It's hard to disagree. You couldn't disagree with that. But that does that then supersede that document we adopted? Because that needs to be clarified, because you can pick up that study and wave it round and say that this is what the council said. Well, we are no longer saying that. Am I right there?
Thank you, Councillor Holt. I can go to the CEO for clarification, but I believe in the matter of an advocacy position that this will supersede a previous position because it doesn't change any big monetary contributions. But I'll go to the CEO for any clarification, or our governance team.
Yeah, look, it is governance question, so it really depends on the status of that document in 2020. If that's an adopted document, then it would be good practice to note that this resolution supersedes that one. If it was just a study that was noted, then it's actually the advocacy document from September 2020 4 that would be the existing motion, the existing resolution on the books. So this resolution here, this motion, because you haven't voted yet, if it's passed, that would supersede the priorities document, but I would need to check the wording of the resolution from 2020 to better provide absolute clarity on rescission, whether a rescission is required or not.
I've got no problem with that at all, but I'm just questioning. I was under, it's 4 years ago, my recollection was that we adopted that at a council meeting, but maybe you can research that. But if we did, we need to rescind it, as well as rescinding or saying that 24 priorities document is superseded. And then this motion becomes our position, full stop. So we're all off the same hymn sheet here.
Councillor Holt, it might be good governance if you were prepared to move an amendment to rescind. Have a think about that. Director Steadman.
Through you, Mayor, I would suggest that if there is an outstanding resolution regarding the 2020 document, that that could be considered by council at the upcoming December council meeting to then rescind that in favour of the motion that is being considered today. Not that we would have to do it at exactly the same time if we're not sure.
So going off that information, we are more than eligible to proceed with today's motion as it stands, and we'll get some clarification, and if necessary, we can put up a rescind motion for a previous, whatever it may be, position or noting of that 2020 document at our December meeting. Are we happy with that, councillors? It won't change anything in regards to today's motion. Mr. CEO, Mr. Fitzgerald, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, Director Gladman's provided me with some clarification. The resolution was that council receive and note the childcare feasibility study and business case. It's not an adopted document. It is just something that you've received and noted. So this position would be the position of council.
That's good. That puts that to sleep.
Well, that's clarified that now, so there's no need to do any further investigation for any future meeting. We're happy to proceed as we were initially with today's 2-point motion that has been moved by Councillor Wilson, seconded by Councillor Weaver. Is there any further councillors wishing to speak for or against? If not, in that case, I'll ask for a show of hands in favour. And that is carried. Carried unanimously, I'd like to note. Thank you, councillors. That has been a great meeting and a very important topic and conversation that we've all had lengthy discussions between ourselves, between council and also between our community members regarding. There's some clarity moving forward there, and on all matters of advocacy, council has always taken a responsible approach to get the best outcomes for all of Loddon without being discriminatory against any community or group of people. We here, as mentioned in our affirmation, that we, the councillors of Loddon Shire, declare that we will carry out our duties in the best interests of the community and through collective leadership, which we've shown today, will maintain the highest standards of good governance, and I like to add decision making on the betterment or for the betterment of all community. Councillors, there is no urgent business admitted today, and no consideration needed there. Also, councillors, there is no confidential items listed today. So in that case, we can now move to close the council meeting as council has addressed all the items listed on today's agenda. And I'd like to thank our gallery here in the chamber for coming along and taking interest in council matters, and anyone watching the live stream. Thank you, councillors, for another great month. Thank you to all the directors and staff. And we can officially close today's November meeting at 4:51 p.m. Thank you very much.